Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we are discussing, my favorite topic, the L Word Generation Q Season 3. So I have had many questions about Season 3. Mainly, is Season 3 happening? And also, why are we waiting so long? What's happening? Is this good? Is this bad? What does it all mean? What is the L Word's place in the world? So I am here today to answer exactly those questions. Now, I'm going to explain everything as well as I can, but if you have any questions, you guys know you can always put them down in the comment section, and also you can get me over on social media. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and make sure you're also following me over there, because when news does roll out, that's the first place it's going to be posted. So you want to be in the know. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button if you are looking forward to season 3, and let's get into it. So our two options, let's start out with our first of the two options of what is going on right now with season 3. The first one is the case where they've basically been given the nod that they're going to renew the show for a third season, but there are some things that they want done, agreed to, before they sign the legal renewal agreement, where they basically have a production agreement where they're exercising their option for renewal, and that means that they sign all the contracts and they're officially legally renewed. So what does that mean? What is basically a nod but they're not legally renewed? The case normally is that between seasons, networks, especially on one like Showtime, where it's a subscription network basically, is that there is a bunch of creative executives who each of them have shows that they do the same way that like the Showtime social media, like certain people have certain shows and creative executives have certain shows. So the people that are the creative executives for the L Word would be very well versed in the show, and they would be the ones that would be saying things like, oh, in season 3 we want to see exploration of Finley's backstory, we want to see Shane and Tess move to Vegas. I'm just making these things up for examples. They would say, we want to see some guest stars, and we want, every 3 episodes to have some big guest stars. And sometimes they will even say that they want certain guest stars. So someone like Rosie last season, who she was on other Showtime shows at the time, so she'd be probably having a contract with Showtime saying, I agree to appear in like 3 of your series. And sometimes there's even agreements in place with like bigger actors. Like they could even say, we want an episode where Sarah Paulson appears, and they would have, a big to do about her being in the show. So that's like the general, that was the way the world was before COVID and stuff. And Showtime have said to me themselves that they just have changed the way they do things. And that means that before, not that they were like willy-nilly renewing stuff, but they would renew it with a lot less sort of oversight. And now they want a lot more fleshed out development before they renew. So another thing that they will do is they'll sit down and they'll basically have how each character is going to develop over the course of the season. So in a TV show, they have something called a show Bible, and that is basically a book. It looks like scripts all together, and it has everything in it. And especially on a show like the L Word, where they have characters who've existed for 20 years, like it will have everything in there. everything about the character, like who they've dated, their family, like their relationship status. What for Bet, it would be something like having her education, her family, like everything about Tina, all the other people she's dated, anytime she's given like any preferences. James will be in there, like all the places she's worked, and it is just all the information about the show. And when they're writing things about the character, like people will check the show Bible, and throughout the show Bible they will have synopsises of each episode as well, and it'll have like all the guest stars, everything, like every single thing about the L Word exists in this book. I would love to be in charge of the book, and I also would love to see the time. The timeline probably doesn't exist in the book. But anyway, now there is a thing called a season Bible, and that is a very fleshed out concept of where they're going over the course of the season. So they're sitting down and they're arcing out each of the characters and where we're going, where they're starting and where they're ending. So if you have an imaginary world where Bet and Tina are going on honeymoon in the last episode of season 3, they're going to mark out, okay, if they're going on honeymoon in episode 10, then they need to have their wedding in episode 9, and they need to be engaged in episode 7, and they need to start dating again by episode 5, like stuff like that, where it's not going to be like actual dialogue and things like that. It'll be concepts and developments and summaries of where we're going with these characters. As I said, there will be casting stuff in there, so a lot of them will be saying things like, oh, we want certain guest stars, we want maybe some stunt casting, which is when they have like a big name, like that would be Kristen Stewart, Sarah Paulson. I'm obviously in dream world here, but bringing in really big people where they're guest starring, and it would generate a lot of publicity, a lot of news articles about them being on the show or being cast. Like this time last year when all the news came out about Rosie, and it was everywhere and stuff, and even though we broke that news on this channel. So another thing that goes on here is they also talk about a lot of the creative issues. So these network executives and Marja and writers and the executive producers, probably Kate and Leisha too, will all be sitting down and really going through the general reaction to the season, like what worked, what didn't, and the who even knows what they're looking at, what they're reading, what they're watching. I mean, I already know for a fact that they are very involved in looking at fan feedback, so this will be a big part of the meetings and things like that, where they're looking at what stuff worked and what didn't. And an example of this, I imagine, would be Danny and Gigi, like the most popular thing on Gen Q, like went down an absolute storm. I'm sure that there will be a big bullet point in the creative decisions that will be Danny and Gigi needs to take front and center of season 3 because they just absolutely went down a storm. So it'll be stuff like that. And then they'll also, in these creative issues, talk about stuff that didn't work, like some of the things that were really unpopular. They'll be saying we need to get rid of these things, or like whittle down some screen time, or redistribute things. So it's a lot of stuff like that, just really talking about what worked and what didn't, and where they want season 3 to go going forward. It's basically like imagining a mega YouTube video where they're all sitting down and just discussing what are we doing with season 3, and the creative executives have a big say in where the show goes. And although like yes, the showrunner and the writers are in charge, like there's things that if the creative executives say I want this in the show or I don't want this in the show, it really is like Showtime are the people who sign the checks. And we all know the people that sign the checks are usually the bosses. So when people as well, this is just a little side note, a lot of the time when people are saying, I blame the writers, I blame this, like, you should also include the creative executives in that, because they are big decision makers when it comes to the show. So that is one of the options, this basic nod, but they haven't got a legal agreement. Now, the other option is that they do have a legal agreement. They have exercised their option to renew, and Showtime have decided to hold the announcement. So why would they do that? Well, the answer is there's a million reasons why they would do that. All these things like are so carefully curated that they will be releasing information only when they want to. And it depends on so many things. Like, my personal thought is that Dexter is on at the moment. Like, it is taking up all their resources and they want all the attention on Dexter, so they don't want to sideline things to announce Gen Q. So I think that once the initial, frenzy of Dexter being back, like it's the 3rd episode this week, then we may see an announcement about Gen Q. Honestly, there are hundreds of thousands of reasons as to why they could be holding the announcement. It even could be down to things like resources of people and availability, and just the fact that they're still like ironing out final details and things. I mean, when you go back to the nod but no legal agreement, they also could be working on getting those signatures on certain guest stars, and they want to make those announcements after a certain amount of weeks after they've made the renewal announcement. So it all factors into that. And because Showtime is now really weighing their options and really making sure that when they're renewing, that they're in a much further along place and a much better place when they do renew, that they have, all this development already and all these thoughts and have work kind of done already, that they even could be looking at getting some tapes and like new characters that they're having coming in. They could be doing like early auditions, and even a lot of the people behind the scenes and things like that, like they need to get all those contracts in place and put offers out and get signatures. So it's just not an easy feat anymore. And then even adding in that when the strike and all that stuff was happening too, so that could have, eaten up some time as well. And there are so many factors that go into this, because obviously it's a huge amount of money and huge amount of time and everything. And they do already have that agreement with Marja that she got this year. So overall, I just really think that they're sitting down and making sure that they're in a really good place going forward with season 3, and making sure that they really know where they're going with the season, the storylines, all the characters and everything. So I think that we're going to be in a really good place when they do come back. But as I said in my video last week, the renewal's coming. We just all got to keep the faith, and we will see that official news really soon. And I know it's not soon enough. I wish it was now, but it will be happening really, really soon. So I hope that this shed a little more light on what's going on. And if you have any questions, of course, let me know down in the comment section. I will be keeping everyone up to date, so make sure that you're subscribed, you are following me on all of social media, and if you want to check out my Patreon where we have watch parties, or you want to check out my merch store, everything is linked in the description box down below. And I have tons of content out at the moment if you want to check any of that out. And don't forget, on December 1st, we are starting our every day in December video releases. And also, I am going live on Monday this week, so I hope that you can join us. And as always, make sure to stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.